Hi, my name is Alex. I work at Braintrust, and today we're going to be taking a look at Loop, which is our agent that can help you automate a whole bunch of things in our UI. And so the thing we're going to use it for today is to work on this little agent that I wrote, which is just creatively named Weather Agent, and it can give you weather information. So I can say, give me just the current temp in SF, and that's going to go ahead and make a call. And what it's doing under the hood is it's calling this weather service by Open Weather Map. And I'm on the free plan, so I don't have these forecasts available. And so while it can pull the current weather, it can't really offer forecasts. And so I am going to go in here and I am going to first set up some online scoring, which is scoring that's going to be happening over logs over real usage. That makes sure it's not promising something that it can't deliver. So first I need to make a score, and we've been here before in the other videos if you watch those, but I'm not going to use this UI today. I am just going to use Loop. So I have a prompt here, and if I paste it in, it just says, create an LLM score that checks output to make sure that the agent provides real-time weather information when asked, but doesn't offer to provide historical or forecast data, as it does not actually have access to those. All right, let's put that in. And this is going to create an LLM judge as a scorer for us. It won't actually do it in here, but I didn't have any scores yet, so it automatically pulls off this form. Now that it's created it, I can go back to scores, and we can take a look at the score it just made here. And so here it is. You are evaluating whether an AI agent correctly handles weather information requests. So you can see it's pulling in input, output, and then it does some scoring on it and it returns a score. And so Loop just wrote all of that for us. It's saved. Now all we have to do is we have to set it up so the scores are automatically assigned to any logs that we get from the agent that's running right now. So I can go to online scoring and configuration, and I can create a rule. And the rule is just going to be called weather is good. Great. And we're going to select the score that we just made, which is real-time weather check. We don't need to do any filters because it's just running on root spans. And the project is only going to have this agent in it. And then for sampling rate, I'm going to crank it to 100% because this thing's not going to see a whole lot of use, and this is just for demo purposes. All right, so now I can create this rule, and I will see you when we have some logs. Okay, so now we are back in logs, and we have some usage logs here that were definitely not just me in the last 15 minutes. So we can see that for the real-time weather check score that we set up, some of these rows are scoring under 100%. And so we need to fix that. What you can do is you can go into here, you can go into this check, and you can read the rationale, and you can do that kind of one by one. But when the list gets long, you don't really want to do that anymore. It's very time consuming, especially if you have a lot of logs. And so something you can do is you can go into Loop and you can say, look in the last hour of logs and tell me why some of them are getting a score of less than 1 on the real-time weather check. And so we can kick that off, and instead of us having to read, we can have Loop figure out what's going on and why we're not getting the scores of 100% that we want. Okay, so it found the rows. Now it found the logs. And it is going to analyze what's going on. Okay, yeah, so there were 4 cases that scored 0.5, 1, 2, 3, 4. That looks right. And the analysis is the agent is correctly providing correct weather data, but it's being overly helpful by offering to provide forecasts, which violates the scorer's criteria. The scorer is catching this and marking these responses as only partially correct with a score of 0.5. Okay, so we know what's wrong. Now we have to fix it, and we should fix it in a way where we can check if it's actually fixed. So the way I like to do that is go into logs and get all the rows in here into a data set so we can check against that data set later. And so something I can do here is I can say, please add all the rows that have a score of less than 1 to a data set for me. And it should be able to do that. There's other ways to do that, so you can just select them and you can just say add to data set, but we are being loop maximalists for this video. Okay, so it found our 4 rows and it wants to add them to a data set. Okay. So now we have a data set called low scoring weather queries with 4 rows, and we can go look at that. I will go in here, and here's our data sets. Let me just refresh really quick. Okay, here we go. 4 examples. All right, we got these rows, and they have our questions. What's the weather like in Chicago? And then for expected input, should provide current weather without offering forecast. I don't think we actually want that. I don't think expected actually makes sense here. And we're just going to get rid of that. So let's use loop again. And we can say, get rid of the expected column field from all rows in this data set. Okay, and so it's able to look at the rows in here, and shortly it should be able to delete all of them. All right. Great. Now they are gone. Okay, so that cleans up the data set a little bit. But I think one other thing we want to do is all these inputs have this like role user thing and type message. And I don't actually want that in my data set. I just want the question itself. So we can do that as well. So I can say in this data set, please change the input fields so they are just the question in the content attribute of input instead of the full object that's in there now. Okay. Oops. Content. All right, it's working on it, and these all look correct. All right, let us accept that. It might take a second for this to come back. Okay, there we go. All right, what's the weather like in Chicago? What's the weather like in London, Miami, and Paris? Okay, this is pretty good. I'm worried that this might not catch it though. So just to be safe, let's add a few more rows. And I can say something like, look at the questions in the input fields for the rows in this data set and add 5 more similar rows. And if this works correctly, we should get 5 more rows that are just questions about weather in cities. Berlin, Sydney, New York, Tokyo, Toronto. Excellent. Okay. I was worried I was going to have to think of city names myself. Okay, so this all works. Now I'm going to go write an eval, and I will see you shortly. And we're looking at code now, so I'm on the other side. So here we have our eval. I just have an agent defined here with the get weather by city call. And the data is coming from the dataset that we just defined using loop. The task is just the agent being called with the input from the dataset. And for scores, we are using the score we created with loop all the way in the beginning of the video for online scoring. We can just use it here for the same purpose. And so if I go in here, I can run this eval. And you can see it's doing some lookups for all the cities. And these are fake so that it runs faster. But if we go to the UI, we can actually see some of these scores start to come in. And you can see they are at roughly 50-ish%. Okay, one of them got 100. That's nice. Okay, so let's try to actually fix this. And I can go into loop and I can say, oops, let me just, all right, that's a better spot for me. Let me say, please suggest a new system prompt that will raise the scores for real-time weather check based on the rows you see in this experiment. Okay, and so much like it did with the logs that we looked at earlier, it's going to go through and it's going to read the justification from the LLM as a judge and try to provide us with a system prompt this time that we can use in the eval. Let me get that system prompt right now. So let's just copy this out of here and we can go back to our code. And instead of this, we can replace it. And so I think the meaningful component here is provide the current weather conditions. You may offer to provide more details about the current weather. And you provide current real-time weather data only. And let's make sure that's saved. And now we can go back here and we can run this eval again. And I'm going to go back here to our experiments and I'm going to see how this new one is going. Hopefully better than the last one. Let's see. Yep, we got these going and yeah, it's looking pretty good. Looking like hundreds. Okay, so that's the end of the things I wanted to show here. There's a lot more that Loop can do. For example, if you go to the monitoring page and you want to make a chart, Loop can help you make that chart. So you're kind of not fumbling around in the BTQL so much. You can kind of see where it can do things by where you see the Loop logo. But I hope this was a good example of kind of an end-to-end flow of working with logs, getting meaningful information out of the logs, turning that into data sets, scores, and kind of using Loop to improve the core agent to make the scores better. And yeah, appreciate you watching. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you watch some other videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.